Now we will study three roles of OS. Okay, this beautifully given in the book, and of course in Berkeley slides. Uh, the first role of OS is it provides an illusion. Okay, for example, each user process, or when you write program, you never bother about the length of your program. You think that the whole memory is available to you, whole main memory is available to you, which is same as your address space. I mean, basically main memory can be less than or greater than address space, but you say that whole address space, the 2 raised power say 64, if you have 64-bit processor, is all available to me. Okay, so this is a virtual world created to you, and each process can think that, not user, but each process can think that I have 2 raised power 64 address space available. Within that, I can keep my instructions or data or whatever. Okay, so it provides that illusion. Similarly, file is an illusion. File system is an illusion, right? There is nothing called files in hard disk. It's just zeros and ones. So it provides illusion of files. Similarly, each process thinks that it has whole CPU for itself. Like I'm using Zoom, and my assumption is that whole computer is for me at this point in time. I don't want any disruptions. But at the same time, we know that a lot of other processes running on my laptop and your laptop, right? Okay, so I am getting only a slice of processor for this task, right? While I have because there are other processes running, right? There is a processor management running. There is a I am running browser also. I am running PPT and so on, and the background is also doing a lot of maintenance tasks. So there are hundreds of processes running at this point in time. But the illusion that I have, that the whole processor is available, whole computer is available for me. So this illusion is provided to me by OS. It's providing me a virtual processor. Okay, and each process thinks that there's a virtual processor. Okay, when you watch, say for example, on your mobile, when you use WhatsApp, okay, you think that is all available for WhatsApp, or maybe your your comp science student, you will know, but your parents, for example, who are not computer science graduates, so they know that it's only for WhatsApp, but same time the phone call comes, it means that large number of other applications are running or processor running on the same processor. Okay, it means that now processor is time sliced between various processes, but the illusion that we have is that it's all available to us, right? So this is one illusion. So okay, so it provides easy to use abstraction for physical resources like infinite memory. We don't have to think how much memory we have for program, that we have a dedicated machine for tasks like Zoom call. Okay, and then of course we have abstraction of files, user, messages. Okay, and so it masks the limitations of the hardware and present a view, okay, a virtual view, right? Of course, like the virtualization we do nowadays, in anything we can virtualize. It means we can create a virtual view of resources for the convenience of user and for efficiency. For example, I may have Windows systems running on Windows. I can run container, or we can run VM. Okay, so now this VM, on this VM, then I can load Linux or whatever. Okay, so that Linux or that I'm running on VM gives me illusion of a different computer altogether, right? Okay, so there's the role of illusionist, as OS is an illusionist. So this is the hardware. So it provides the illusion on top to users. Okay, so here is OS, like it provides threads, it provides address spaces, it provides files, it provides sockets. Okay, and of course all these are provided for user for processes, right? And processes of course are for users. Okay, and of course we have a compiled program and then interface between outside world, okay, or the or program or user program to OS is through system libraries that we'll study later, or syscalls, right? So but something that is providing on top here is an illusion, a thread, for example, okay, which programs can use, and higher level abstraction is provided by application, right? When applications are using processor and threads, that's not visible to user, but OS provides this illusion of, or having a thread, processes, address space, files, sockets, and so on. Okay, all right. All right, this same thing. Okay, so of course we know by now what is a process. Okay, anybody can tell me what is a process? Don't read it from here, but in general.
Sir, running instance of a program.
Fine, good. How about compiled instance of a program? No. Compiled instance
So
of
we can't
program,
call it a
yeah.
process
So
because
you can
compiled instance.
compile, so it will create a file.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that compiled instance may not be able to run. So something that's runnable, that's loaded into main memory, a program that's loaded into main memory for execution, and we create that execution environment for that, like we have studied stack, heap, and all those stuff, right? ELF format. That is a process. A process may be, it has to be in runnable state. Maybe it's not running, but it's runnable state. It can be made to run. We'll study processing details later, right? And for example, there are hundreds of processors on my processor right now. So I've taken this instance from my laptop. Okay. So OS translates hardware interfaces to application interfaces. Okay. And OS provides each running program with its own process. Of course, process creation is the role of OS, right? For example, when you want to run a program, what is the steps involved in running a program? First thing is, of course, you have written a code. Or maybe tomorrow we'll study that. We'll compile it, pre-process it, compile it, then link it, then load it. And when it's a load, actually that whole thing, both the code and compiled code and data goes into that ELF format that we have studied, right? We have global variable, yeah, we have code which we call it text, global variable, then we have heap, and then we have stack. Okay, and then on top we will have OS. Okay, OS, of course. So this OS is of course part of our address space, but it's not, it's a protected one, so we can access, as a process we can access this area. This we studied, right? So when we say process, all these things are available in main memory. Okay, and when process is actually running, then we are making changes into stack and saving variable values into stack, okay, from registers and so on. We studied this in detail, right? All right, so this is first process, this is second process. Each process can have multiple threads, okay, and each process will have its own address space, right? This address space, whatever we see here, from 0000 to whatever, 2 raised power say 64 minus 1, it is all there for each process. Okay, we will not say it's for each thread. There can be multiple threads using same address space. We'll study that later, right? Similarly, we can have files and sockets. Second process, where in second process also will have its own address space. Okay, starting from some same 000 to whatever. Okay, now this is a virtual world of address space, and it has to go into actual RAM, main memory, so it means that if two processes running, then main memory will have part of the main memory allocated to first process, part for second process. Okay, while virtual world creates this concept of address space that each user sees the address space. Is it clear? Any question? Any question?
No, sir.
Okay. Jaishika,
Yes, sir.
बताइए. So why two processes have got to have same addresses? 0002 whatever FFFF. How are they separated out? Actually, those both are different processes, right? While in virtual world they are using the same addresses, right? How do we translate this into physical addresses? Because this ELFs for them, or this whatever we have said, stack and heap, etc., for each process will be loaded into different area, but sometimes it's not fully loaded also, right? In main memory, if there is a memory limitation is brought, we studied swap, concept of swapping. It's basically same thing is available also in hard disk and then brought in, part of that is brought into main memory. So my question to you is that how do we protect one process from another process if they have different virtual addresses, same set of virtual addresses? And there are hundreds of processes, right, like this. Try, Jashika.
Yes, sir.
We studied this in last semester, right? How virtual addresses are translated into physical addresses? That gives answer. We use virtual memory concept, right? We have page tables. Now page tables map. So this, whatever we are showing here, can be think of multiple pages, and these different pages using page table and page table corresponding to each process can be loaded into different part of the memory, right? So this may be for first process P1, second page could be for P2, and so on, right? So this is very simple translation mechanism. So Jaishika, please do one thing for me. Okay, please go through last year's slides, and this reason I want you to read books. When you read book, all these concepts should be clear, right? We have spent almost like 10 lectures on concept of virtual memory. Okay, and please go through it, because all this effort is wasted if you don't have very clear understanding of virtual memory. Okay. All right, please, Jashika, please do favor to me and please go through it, because you should be
Yes,
able to answer this very simple concept. Okay, and please ask. If you don't understand anything, please ask. We can repeat all over again. See, I'm here to help you out as much as possible. If you want me to take extra class for you, those of you who want to understand virtual memory, again, I can spend few hours on weekends. Are you okay?
Yes, sir. I'll go through it.
So do you want me to take because it's something very important for. See, it's nothing to feel bad about it. Many students may not understand the concept of virtual memory. Okay, but it's very important for interviews that you'll face and otherwise too. So if you want me to spend say 3-4 hours on weekends to tell all of you who want to revise it, I can do that. because we will build on this, right? It's just this foundation things that we should know. Okay, all right. Please let me know, Jaishik. I am giving this responsibility to collect inputs from others, and we can start again from very basic and try to build the concept up. Nothing to feel ashamed about it, right? I mean, all of us have, sometimes or other forget things. Okay, but
Yes.
once you have this picture in mind, how this translation happens, and you may not remember details like what is TLB, etc., but you'll know there is a cache memory where we can keep this translation table. What is the purpose of translation table? How page table provides security, right? All these things will come from those concepts, right? Okay, all right. Okay. All right, so this is one process. There is second process. Okay, where I am. Okay, all right. So, okay, let's assume that first process is running. Okay, so it means the processor is using this part of the memory corresponding to the first process. Okay, this whatever TLB we have, this process has been scheduled to run by scheduler, and so this part of the memory where this all these details are like code, heap, and stack, etc. Okay, this is there in main memory somewhere. Okay, and page table knows where it is. So this processor is accessing that instruction and data from this main memory, right? Okay, while process 2 exists, and process 2 is also in main memory, but is waiting, okay, for its turn. So so it means that this green one which shows process 2 is still there in my memory, and there is OS also. Okay, so this process can access this green area, while this process access the brown area, and then processor is using, currently process is running program 1 or process 1. Okay, and then we have something called context switching. This concept we will study later also, but switching process. And now OS decided, fine, process 1 has run enough. Now there's a process 2 has to run. Okay, and then what it will do is that processor, it will flush the pipeline, whatever processor we have studied, right? Pipeline, if it's there, it will flush out and then start running something which is from memory, green memory, or process corresponding to memory 2. So this is the whole process of changing from one memory to other memory, or one program to another. It means that processor switches between one process to another process is called context switching. Okay, because now the the user of the brown process may not even know. Like when I am talking, there's a possibility that my program that I am running, my Zoom program, has been context switched 100 times within a second, or thousands of times in fact. Okay, and some other process come into play. Okay, it's not that it's running only Zoom, it's running thousands of other processes, and then it's context switch, but we are not feeling it that our communication is not breaking. Means that I have illusion that I am using it fully, right? So now if suppose this green process or process 2 wants to access this area of RAM which corresponds to process 1, okay, and also it wants to access OS memory, okay, and then it's responsibility of OS to disallow this or not allow this, right? Okay, this is where protection comes or security comes. Okay, like we have seen, we have studied in very brief when we studied page table, how page table provides a mapping to physical place, right? And if you have to share that page, then there is a way to share it, right? Because there are some bits or some flags that we use in page table. But nevertheless, we'll study that again sometime or other. So OS provides this protection, right? It isolates one process from other, and OS isolates itself from other processes. although everything is running on the same processor. Okay, so there's the first functionality of OS. Second functionality is the, I'm sorry. Okay, so first, sorry, just I missed one. The first functionality is to provide virtual view. Okay, just missed that. Okay. First is illusion. Okay. Second is to provide it's a referee, or it actually protects one from another. Okay, it provides security that we have studied. It provides protection, isolation, and sharing of resources. Fine, and this is how we have seen how we can share resources, and protect one process from other process by context switching and other mechanisms that we'll study later. Okay, and so the protection we have studied just now. So third role is how we can glue everything together, right, and present a uniform view on the top. Say for example, we have a file system, and file systems, while underneath technology is changing, file system may remain the same. Okay, and same files can be used by browser, or browser will not have different file system than a text editor. Okay, text editor is writing into a created file, and a file, that file has to be used by OS. So now, so that used by browser will not demand, because browser may ask for a file in certain format. Okay, but OS provides all this abstraction, right, or creates that uniform view, whatever may be happening underneath among number of processes and users. Okay. So OS plays a key role in providing set of common and standard services to applications. Say for example, Control C and Control V, cut and paste. We can do cut and paste. This is a common thing, right? I mean, in a file we can do it, text file we can do it. We can do it in, say for example, some other kind of file also. A Word file we can do cut and paste. And we can also do cut and paste in a directory. Okay. So while cut and paste is higher level abstraction, that's applicable to large number of underneath thing, whether it's a file or maybe a directory or something else. Okay, of course, file directory is also kind of file, but among various objects underneath, we can provide this abstraction. Okay. All right. All right. So this, so we have seen there are three main functions of OS. First is illusionist. It provides illusion. Okay, that's abstraction to high level. Then second is of course referee. It protects one process from another, or one user from another user. Okay, and third is that it provides a glue among various underneath resources. It provides a common view at the top. Okay, this of course uses standard APIs and file IO, etc. These are the examples. Okay, so here we can say for example in IO, right, it provides IO, like I mean whatever networking we do or whatever IO devices we have, we do IO. In fact, for disk also we do IO. So IO management is abstractions are provided on top. Okay, so it same file, the file reading, writing, etc. can happen over hard disk or can happen over other devices, other things. For example, what do you call that? Flash drive, SSD. Okay, all right. So OS provides common services in the form of IO. It provides look and feel, same look and feel, right? And it does through Windows, for example. Whatever be hardware changes underneath, Okay, OS provides same consistent view. In fact, like if you run the same OS that you have on new version of hardware, it still provides the same view. Okay, and then it also does provide background management like battery management or power management and some diagnostic process that's keep running and so on. Right? All right. So basically, what we have. Okay. So here we have seen that OS provides I/O and common look and feel, and then it also at the same time keeps managing whole system. Right? It manages storage, manages main memory, it shares main memory among number of users, it shares usage of processor, which is most important resource. Okay, it manages networking, right? Or the basically whenever there's a packet coming from say Ethernet or network, that passes on to higher level processes. Okay, and similar process may be sending something, of course, using socket, etc. It drives this or sends this out, right? So it manages display, power, etc., right? So that's the responsibility of OS. Okay, and this is what is shown here is a monolithic view of OS. Okay, so we'll study later. There is something called microkernel or distributed OS. Those are advanced concepts, but so we have something that runs in kernel mode. Okay, something that runs in user mode. We'll study this dual mode of operation little later. And this is what is restricted area or priority area, right? It's something here user processes cannot directly access. They have to come through system calls. Okay, only system calls, through system calls which are well-defined APIs, user process can use the underneath hardware. Any hardware, whether it's a processor or main memory or storage or whatever, okay, has to happen through through OS. Okay, okay, something that is restricted. I will not say exactly everything, but something that has restricted access. Like for example, all I/O resources, right? Keyboard, for example, or printer, or for example, hard disk or network card, okay, or CPU, okay, all these are accessed through very well defined APIs. Okay, and that's called kernel mode. A part of OS can also run in user mode. So these are the new concepts. Okay, so part of system library also maybe for management. Okay, but right now we'll assume that everything above kernel mode is user processes, and something below where we are accessing through system APIs are part of kernel or OS. So our definition of OS right now for next few classes will be something that's in protected mode. Okay, all right, so that's all about what we want.